So here's our first study. Are patients getting accurate information from their doctors about marijuana? Okay, so this was recently published. This 237 oncologists, these are cancer doctors, a group of scientists went around and interviewed these doctors and asked them this question. How much do you know about marijuana? Are you prescribing it to your patients? So about 80% of these cancer doctors said that they talk to their patients about marijuana. What percentage of these oncologists or cancer doctors do you think recommend it? And what percentage of these oncologists are well-versed in marijuana? So how many do you think recommend? And how many do you think are well-versed? Okay, so about half of the doctors recommend cannabis as a medical treatment, but fewer than 30% feel they have sufficient knowledge about the topic. That's concerning. Half are recommending it, less than 30% feel like they have enough knowledge to really understand it. But it's really not physicians' fault because they weren't taught any of this in medical school. This is a lot of new information. There's a lot of questions about the dose, what type of marijuana. Anecdotal, meaning it's helping one person here or there, versus a group of people, reliably. Lots of confusion. Is marijuana medicinal? What do you think? Yes. Okay. Let me ask you this. What's the most common legal used drug? Caffeine. I heard it in the back. Caffeine is the most common legal used drug. Marijuana is the most common used illicit drug. In fact, 22 million people used it in the last month, or admitted to using it in the last month. So you might be saying, but isn't marijuana legal? Well, it's very confusing. Marijuana at the federal level is what? Illegal, but there's about 33 states that have some sort of reform making it legal. This is part of the problem, is the confusion here. Also part of the problem is that marijuana is classified as something called a Schedule I drug. When a drug is classified as Schedule I, it's very difficult to do research on it. A Schedule I drug is something that is determined to not have any medical benefit. But does marijuana have a medical benefit? That's what we'll start talking about. Should we ease up restrictions so that it is studied more? Okay, so is marijuana a medicine? In order to answer that question, I need to do 5,000 years of marijuana history in 30 seconds. And the reason I have to do that is because this medication, marijuana, is different than any other medication we use. We have to take a quick look back to put this in perspective. So, way back all the way 2700 BC, in China, there's written documentation that marijuana was used as a medical treatment. We fast forward all the way to AD 79, Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder had a wide or long list of conditions he was using marijuana to treat. And all the way in 1850, in our country, 1815 AD, pharmacists and doctors were using this medication. It was actually in textbooks that pharmacists used, and it was used for a long list of medical conditions. It was a legitimate medical compound. Then what happened? So in about 1930, William Randolph Hearst, the publisher, and the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics essentially worked together, and they turned the tide on marijuana. They started publishing things in newspapers saying things like marijuana is a shortcut to the insane asylum, marijuana makes a murderer who kills for the love of killing out of the mildest mannered man. And the perception of risk on marijuana went way up. And the idea of using it as a medication fell out of favor and it became illegal. We're not going to talk about why this happened. A lot of politics, a lot of money, but this happened.